We don't want to get a meeting. We've between us had like 17 engagements on this stage alone, and I'm not counting Adam.
Yeah. Actually, anyway, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna take it right into the gutter, Adam. No matter how much you want to stop it.
Stop. Go ahead.
So anyone gone to Korean saunas? That was like very few. So Korean saunas are a big thing. Like sauna, going to a Korean sauna is part of the culture. You go probably every day or a couple times a week, and everyone mates together in these like steam rooms and hot pools. And that's something that you do when you're in Korea, and he wasn't allowed to use any of them because he had tattoos. And I had one, and they made me cover it with a bandage so that... Well, I have more since then, but yeah.
Things have moved on.
They're frowned upon.
They're frowned upon. Well, not so much now, because a lot of these Korean, kind of fashionista kids and artists are getting tattoos, so now it's accepted. But the time that I was there,
You couldn't get a scrub with a tattoo.
you could get a scrub with a tattoo.
Love the money. How about that? Anti-tattoos, tattooist. Yeah. Well,
You have a tattoo?
No, I could go...
Are you anti-tattoo?
No, I'm not anti. I could go freely in any Korean spa. There would be other issues, Dom. You're on the list. We all know.
All right, well, also, I know you have a big dance background. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I've just been dancing since I was young. I started doing musical theater as a kid first, and so you take dance classes, and I've taken ballet and jazz and all that since I was 8 years old.
What's your favorite style?
I would say, when I was younger, I would say it was lyrical jazz. Does anyone know what lyrical jazz is? Yeah. Now it's like kind of turned into contemporary dance.
Poor Todd Stark fans.
Does anybody watch So You Think You Can Dance?
What the fuck are we talking about?
So contemporary.
How would you describe Bob Fosse's style?
Bob Fosse is, I would say he's classical jazz.
Ice-T.
I mean, that's Ice-T.
Ice-T.
No, it's hands.
A jazz hand.
Fosse. I would say that's now like classical jazz. At a time, well, now there's like modern jazz, lyrical jazz, jazz funk, all the stuff that you see in Britney Spears concerts and all that, music videos, that's jazz funk, that's not hip hop. I'm boring everyone with dance.
Actually, we are interested in that. So, I mean, you've got background in theater, background in dance, and speaking of theater, you co-founded a theater company in LA. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I co-founded a company that we didn't last very long, but I'm part of a theater company that everyone probably knows through Armin Shimmerman, Antaeus,
which is right down the block from us in Glendale, by the way. It's literally 2 blocks from my office.
Oh, really? Have you seen any shows there?
He invited me to the one that's going on now, but of course,
3 days
you're working. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Armin's in that. Armin is one of the 2 ensembles.
Yeah.
So are you acting over Antaeus?
Yeah, I did. Actually, the last show we did there was Cat on a Hot Tin Roof with my husband. Does anybody know the play Cat on a Hot Tin Roof?
And those of you that don't know Antaeus, it is the theater company that Kitty Swink and Armin Shimmerman and some other people put together, which Linda is involved with, which is in Glendale, Antaeus, A-N-T-E-A-U-S.
Oh yeah, that was definitely the reason that the captain came and pursued her was her ability with languages, her kind of...
Becoming linguist.
He's been saving that one. Do you recycle that one? Do you use that one?
Take a bow, Samantha B.
And just talk a little bit about the character arc, the growth of your character over the show. Were you pleased with it? I realized the show was kind of cut prematurely, but I thought that the character had, made some movement in terms of just the development of the character over the course of the arc over the 4 years.
Yeah, I think a lot of the character was actually kind of changed as they cast me. Originally, the character was written in her 40s, and yeah, she was. And they were looking around for a long time, and the character was written as Asian American, and And so they were looking at like older actresses, and when they came to me, they'd been looking for, I don't know, for many, many months. And once I got it, I was 20, like 21 or 22, obviously not 40 years old, that the character started to change to someone who was younger, who had less experience. And then when we did the pilot, I guess everyone really loved my screaming, because they used it, they ended up using Hoshi's scream as sound effects for other screams of people being tortured. Yeah.
Little known fact.
Yeah, you know, they're on
You screaming? You screamed in the pilot?
Yeah, I screamed a lot. What'd you say?
Oh, scream, they want you to scream, Linda.
What kind of scream? Like an angry scream, a scared scream, I'm in pain scream, a screaming I was doing in labor. Angry scream.
Can you scream at the moment after surgery? I mean, it's, you want to pop a suture or something?
No. I actually fractured my sternum in labor. I think partially pushing and screaming, so I won't do that again.
Yeah.
You want an angry scream?
All right, go for it.
Why do you want to cover? You ask for it,
Go
and you
for
cover
it.
your ears.
Give him an angry scream.
Okay, ready? All right, this will be all my lack of sleep. Okay.
Very good. And then just, I also want to say, we have a big theme here this weekend of the Mirror universe and the Terran Empire. That's like, we've been riffing on that all over the convention. We have big Terran Empire fans out there, right? Mirror universe? And I had to say that you made a great emperor. You were awesome as Empress Sato, right? Remember? You were really fantastic. It was so really great to see you do a 360 on your character like that. Can you just say a little bit about that? Because it was so much fun.
Actually, 180. 360 right there.
You're right back where you started. That's good. That's why he's Dr. Floss.
Yeah, you know, I have so many
He's built an empire.
people have come up to me today and saying that it was their favorite episode, and I would say it's the same for me. You play one character for 4 years, and then you get the opportunity to do the complete opposite. It's just a sense of freedom, a sense of play, especially, you know, kind of that it got a little bit old, the being fearful or being uncertain, and they did write a lot of growth for her, but I wish that growth would have been a little more accelerated at times, that there would have been bigger leaps, not so slow. And so to be able to make such a big leap the other way, and it's, you know, it's the best of acting. It's total playtime when you're playing a character like that. We're not trying to be super realistic, or we're just...
Now it was a gift. You're like a superhero.
Yeah, it's like when you play a superhero, if you're playing Thor, or you're playing, you know, somebody like Captain America, it's a sense of what you don't get to do in real life. You know, you don't get to poison everyone and take over and...
All right. Thank you very much, Linda. Linda Park there. Opening up a little bit to us, thank you here. Mr. Keating over there, Mr. Dominic Keating.
Yeah.
User of the aristocratic royal British heritage.
Oh yes, that's me.
You come from
I was at the wedding.
You come from a military...
Your first fiancé.
True, you come from a military, come from a military.
I did. My
Tell
mother's
us.
army brat. Yeah, my grandfather was Cornelius Keating Hill, Brigadier, OBE, British Army.
In what era?
He fought in both World Wars, first and second. Wow. I remember my mother being absolutely livid when they gave an OBE to Olivia Newton-John. And rightly so.
It's an obese.
It's an order of the British Empire. It's, you know, it's one of the dignitaries that, well, it's sort of, you know, you get knighted, that's the top one you can get. And then there are lower ranks, CBE, OBE, and other sort of, you know, gracious dignitaries that the Queen will hand out.
Now, where was your dad during World War II?
He was in Egypt. He fought with...
He was in the North African
Montgomery
Theater.
Montgomery campaign.
Up against Rommel.
Yes. Yeah.
My my dad was there up against Ronald in Tunisia.
Yeah, but I've got pictures of my dad up against tanks and jeeps in that desert. Yeah.
That's exciting. So growing up, I mean, was he a positive role model for you?
Well, he died when quite young. I mean, God, no, I turned 57 on the 1st of July, and my dad, thank you, amazing, isn't it? My dad was 55 when he died.
Wow, that's sad.
I was 13 years old. Yeah, it was a tough time.
Well, what sparked your interest in the dramatic arts?
My mum had been an actress, unbeknownst to me. My dad rescued her from the devil's jaw, as he always saw fit. And it was never talked about in our house until after his death. And then around that time, the school I was at decided it was high time that they put on a school play. And the English mistress auditioned us all, and she gave me the lead part. And I don't remember much about it.
What was the play?
It was called The Ragged School, and it was about a group of Victorian urchins living on rooftops in London in Dickens's time. And the leader of this ragtag group was called Cripple, because he had a gammy leg and this crutch that helped him get along, and he beat the other boys with it. And good job. Dominic Keating. I really don't know. I've still got that crutch in a box in my flat in London, along with the costume I wore. I don't really remember much about the play, other than the opening night. I think I was about, I can't have been more than 12 and a half, 13 or something like that. It was pretty much around the same time Dad died. But the English mistress, when she was applying the makeup on the opening night, that's such a lame bitch. But I always remember that she was oh my goodness, you have such impossibly high cheekbones. That was it. I was hooked.
but the fact is, you did go on to do a whole bunch of British stage work, didn't you?
I did. I had a lot of new plays when I first got going, other than starting out. Yeah, the first work I ever did in London was all new plays and won an award and that sort of stuff. And yeah, and then got my first agent through one of those plays.
When'd you come over to America?
25 years ago. It's, yeah, I know, man and boy.
You were here for a while before Enterprise.
I was, 7 or 8 years. I was knocking on a lot of doors. I gathered a bit of momentum. I had some recurring roles on shows at 4 in the morning.
Well, as I recall, I think you did Buffy, right?
I did. It was my first job in America. My first, second season of Buffy. Yeah, there you go. Made Buffy history. I was the first time they ever morphed someone into a vampire live on screen. I was a watcher, an idle watcher of a vampire that Jeff Kober played. Do you remember Jeff came and guested on our show in the 3rd season? He's quite a prolific LA actor. Anyway, yeah, he was a dastardly vampire that they wheeled into a house to put Buffy in with to see if she still had her chops. I remember Harris Yulin was the guy that organised he was quite dear old Harris Yulin, who just showed up in the Ozarks rather wonderfully.
Alright, so how did the Enterprise gig come about?
Met Rick and Brannon for a guest star role on Voyager, which I thought I was going to get, pretty sure I was going to get, and then never heard from them, and was like, fucking hell, that's rough. I might have even said to my manager, if those tossers ever call again, tell them to go sling a hook. Anyway, so he rang me.
Fortunately, your manager didn't understand a word you said, so...
Yes.
Yeah, I'll do that, Dominic, I'll do that. I'll tell him to sling a yoke. Those tossers ever...
And yeah, he rang me up and told me that Ron Server had been on the phone and he thought there was a part for me. Rick came up to me at the end of the 1st season and told me that he'd had my photograph on his desk for 2 years and that they didn't want to waste me on
He had my photograph on his desk.
This sounds pervy.
So yeah, it was the easiest casting.
I was a little pervy, yeah.
One of the easiest casting processes I've ever had. It was really simple.
Is it
3 times.
completely a coincidence that Malcolm was sort of a military guy on the ship?
Yeah, it was. And I based him, because I was going to join the army. I was a very keen officer in the cadet force at my boys' boarding school. I went off to Germany when I was 16 and a half, 17 to live with a regiment there, the Scots Dragoon Guards, on the Osnabrück Rhine. I crashed, my first vehicle I ever drove was a Chieftain tank, and I crashed in Osnabrück High Street.
Nice.
Took out a telegraph pole. I'm not kidding. Made the local paper. We were there for 8 weeks.
You really do come off with the military vibe on the show. I mean, it really.
Yeah, I based it on
pushes
that
through.
young lad that I was at 17. Yeah, I was going to go to Sandhurst, and I came back from that experience, and I said to my mum, I don't have to tell you, Mum, but it's not for me, love. It's just, you know, I realised this life was not for me. I liked all the guns and crashing the tanks.
I think Malcolm had some good progress in terms of the character arc over the course of the show.
Yeah.
I particularly like some of the stuff that you did with Connor, who I wish was here right now with us. But
Yeah, I spoke to Connor earlier. He sends his love to you all. He's going to be here on Saturday. So come say hello to him if you're around.
what were some of your favorite moments on the show? Some of the breakout parts of the character?
Oh, well, you know, that Shuttlepod one was a real treat early on. It was a real treat to get to do that with him. You know, the camaraderie that he and I had, that sort of, you know, odd coupleness was great fun to play. And
How about working with Scott? I'm fascinated by Scott.
can't say enough. I mean, just an absolute gent. He's still, to this day, he helped me out a lot this last year. I had some physical stuff going on, and I got given a book to read that he had given his name to by a man called Anthony William. It's called Medical Medium. I recommend it to anyone that's got any ailments and you just can't figure out. I got an autoimmune disease, and it really took me to my knees, and it's called polymyalgia. The doctors in the West call it polymyalgia, and which is a fancy name for many muscles that ache like crazy. And it was, a friend of mine put this book in my hand, and there was Scott's name on the testimonials. And to this day, he went the extra mile to get me to speak to this guy and get a diagnosis, and him and his wife Chelsea, I can't say enough. He was, to have that guy as our, you know, the number one on the call sheet and the top of the food chain, because sets can be pretty miserable places a lot of the time.
He was a fine anchor for the ensemble.
Fantastic. I mean, he made those years just loving and generous and fun. I mean, we f***ed around so much on those busy bridge days.
He's a master craftsman, so it's kind of hard to reconcile the fact that also you guys had as much fun as you did.
He just
Considering
let us play.
he's got a great work ethic.
Amazing. He never once ever turned around and went, guys, I'm talking to a green screen, and you know, never once. And we did around a lot. Because there were long days on those bridge. Those bridge days were long ass days, and you know, we were just kids making too much money.
Actually, I think you guys earned every cent of it. It was all up on the screen. So thank you.
Thank you.
Keating, everybody. Which brings us to Mr. John.
I cannot wait to hear what you have unearthed
Billingsley.
from my biography.
Well, first,
Yes, I was a spy.
you
Yes, I was a transvestite. All right, move on. I'm a spy.
really are more impressed by how prolific your career is. You've done a hell of a lot of stuff. And sort of tell me about your dramatic background, your dramatic educational background. Where'd you develop your chops at?
I did not actually go to a drama school. I went to Bennington College in southern Vermont intending to be a writer. And I had both the good fortune and the misfortune of studying with some of America's greatest writers, including Bernard Malamud. More people cheered for eating broken glass than cheered for Bernard Malamud. We all need to read more, I'll just say that. George Garrett, some really great writers, but when you're 19 years old and you're taking a master class with one of America's greatest writers, you kind of leave with your tail tucked between your legs. It would be like if I studied with Olivier at 19. So I kind of skedaddled to the drama department where there were more girls anyway. So, there you go. Now I'm a vaguely disreputable character actor on television.
We're possibly high cheekbones.
Impossible.
Where'd you grow up?
We moved around quite a bit. I was born in Pennsylvania. We lived in Schenectady, New York, Fayetteville, New York, Huntsville, Alabama, Slidell, Louisiana, New Orleans, Manhattan, and southern Connecticut. Went to school in Vermont, lived in Boston, Chicago, London, Seattle, and Los Angeles.
So how did you kind of jumpstart your acting career? Where did it all start?
When I got out of college, I lived in New York. It didn't seem as if New York, which is one of the most expensive cities in the country, obviously, it didn't seem really feasible to start there as somebody who didn't sing and dance. So I moved to Chicago, started there, ended up in Seattle, visiting my parents, and spent 12 years there, started a couple of theater companies, including one that adapts fiction for the stage, which is still around 30 years later, which I'm very proud of.
Would these be considered black box theater operations?
Book It grew into a full equity house. It started as we had a sort of an offshoot of an equity contract, which allowed us to tour and then perform our own stories in-house on a kind of a strange hybrid deal. There was a spin-off of that company called Word for Word in San Francisco, which is celebrating its 25th birthday.
It's impressive.
So 55 years of fiction on stage. Very proud of it.
Did you travel so much as a kid?
My father was a criminal. We were always one step ahead of the law. I remember being bundled into a car very early on, and my mother was the driver, and Dad would say, "Step on it, for God's sake!" And we'd scream out of town.
You think this is my first heist?
Yeah, with a lot of heists. He was a corporate guy. He got transferred a lot, worked for General Electric, was kind of climbing the corporate ladder. So back in the 60s, he worked for the NASA missile program, which was why we spent a lot of time down south. I'll say it was very strange to move from down south.
I tell our ladies, I have big southern drawl, nobody can stand me, no.
Was that the Huntsville?
It was Huntsville and Alabama and Louisiana. And I moved to New York, and the Yankee children beat it out of me. I lost that southern accent fairly quickly, years ago.
Well, so amongst your large resume of TV and film that you've done, I see a few genre titles sprinkled in there. Any comments about any of those shows, like Roswell or SG-1 or X-Files, any of those shows that you did?
I've been fortunate in that I've been able to work pretty consistently for a long time. Some of the episodes kind of blur a little bit. I do remember Stargate because I was doing Star Trek at the time, and they hired me because they wanted my character to sort of make some jokes about Star Trek, basically. It was a lovely experience because if you know Star Trek, they are extremely precious about the language. You are not allowed to improvise. Stargate had the opposite vibe. It was like, say whatever you want. And I was working with a wonderful Canadian comedian named Patrick McKenna. So Patrick McKenna fans? Yeah. Excellent, yes. Still not enough people know Bernard Malamud. That's something we'll all work on. The Natural, he wrote the book of The Natural. You know The Natural? Yeah, in The Natural, the book does not have a happy ending. Bad movie. The Fixer, on the National Book Award, don't get me started. I like to read.
All right, we're going to talk about Dr. Fox in just a second, but
Fair enough.
one of your roles that I was fascinated with was 2012. I love these Roland Emmerich giant disaster films, and you're always, that's kind of like a perfect role for you, where you're always there sort of reflecting the emotions of the rest of the audience while they're watching all this mayhem going on there. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that production, because it was a pretty major.
That's an interesting observation. I never thought about it that way. I can't say that I myself was over the moon about that experience, because those huge, big budget shows, you can spend an entire day getting a quarter of a page. You're really just there to pull a stunt off. So as an actor, frequently it's just like run to the tree and back, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, for 12 hours. 2012, it was the End of the World movie where John Cusack famously outruns a volcano. Remember, John Cusack is one fast motherfucker.
I used to call him Johnny Cokesack.
Yes, very, very nice. I will say I did get to work with Chiwetel Ejiofor, who was 12 years a slave.
Serenity. Chiwetel was the bad guy in Serenity.
Oh, he was. I didn't know that.
Sure was.
Terrific actor. And Oliver Platt, who I've
fantastic too, yeah.
Lovely actor, yeah. But
I just love how they love your face in that movie. They keep going back to you. You have the various states of anguish, relief. It's We always cut to your face when we want to see, you know,
Now, what they didn't
the emotional mood of the moment.
What they didn't do, which I wanted them to do, is on the DVD, the blooper section, there was a scene in the shuttle. You know, we were being shuttled to the Ark, and the world is coming to an end, but some of us are going to be saved. And there was a scene in which who's the young woman who played the lead? Beautiful young woman, you know her. I can't remember her name. Who? No, the other beautiful young woman. Anyways, beautiful young woman playing the lead, and Chiwetel Ejiofor, and their romance is blooming, and Tandy Newton,
yeah,
and Chiwetel Ejiofor, and they're talking about, you know, which just struck me as funny, the fact the world is coming to an end, and they're having a date, you know, on the bus, and the camera was rolling, and I kind of signaled the cameraman, and the cameraman kind of turned the camera over to me and said, well, actually, fellas, I'm still a virgin. You kind of had to be there, but at the time it got quite a response from Roland Emmerich, and I thought that was going to make the blooper reel. No.
Darn it.
No.
All right, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about Dr. Phlox. And how did they approach you with the character, and what did they want to accomplish with him, and why did they think you were right for him?
You know, I told this story a lot because you don't really get a lot. I certainly didn't get a lot of information. I didn't even get the script. I just got a scene, and the only instruction was come in with a slight alien accent.
He did British.
So yeah. So I practiced all these funny voices with my wife, and she shot them all down. And the voice I ended up with was more or less the one you hear on screen. Except I thought, well, it should be more interesting than that. The scene seemed to basically about his optimism. I thought in moments of rapture, joyous transport, he should squawk like a bird. So I auditioned and I did the blah, 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 and I got the part, which freaked me out.
I was at we were in the same studio audition to get the job, and I heard him through the doors squawking. I'm like, fucking hell! That's the whole thing. If they don't like the way your eyebrows meet in the middle, you're not getting this gig.
So I get the part, but they wouldn't tell me if I was a bird or not. We had the first table read, and Rick and Brandon are there.
Squawked at that?
Yeah, I squawked, but I didn't squawk with quite as much enthusiasm because it was like, am I a bird or am I not?
Clearing his throat a bit.
And at the end of the table read, I sort of said to Rick and Brandon, so, you know, I mean, I squawked, I don't have to squawk, but I thought maybe he's a bird. What do you think? Is he a bird? And I remember Brandon, if you know Brandon, this will make perfect sense. He got one, what? Like, well, I'll take that to the bank. So I show up the first day.
I was there for this too.
First day of shooting. I still don't know, am I a bird? I don't know what to do. So we're rehearsing. It's like a camera rehearsal. Action. Like, blah, 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 blah. And Jim Conway, the director, says, cut! John, stop fucking around! Which is how I knew I wasn't a bird.
The denobulins were interesting.
Denobulins. The one species that no one can pronounce.
Well, they have a very interesting social structure.
We are polyamorous.
Yeah.
If anybody's married, you know you don't want two more wives. It's like, I say that lovingly, I love my wife. If I was a woman, I wouldn't want 3 husbands either. Which is why I guess I left and went off into space.
Were you happy with the evolution of the character arc over the course of the shows?
Oh, well, you know, I mean, like Linda, I think the reality is that, you know, you're a character actor, so you don't necessarily think you're going to get a ton of stuff to do. I was always interested because this is a new species. And my own thoughts about what the denobulins might be like were continually contradicted by the scripts, but I always found the ideas interesting. I would have loved to have learned more about the culture, more about the nature of what made the denobulin a denobulin, but that wasn't really what that show was about, so I can't say I was upset.
And I was kind of hoping they were going to riff more on that sort of
I would have been
multi-polygonal, whatever you describe that marital structure as.
Yeah.
They used to do that on Alien Nation.
I floated an idea to them, which they rejected. They rejected most of my ideas, all of my ideas. I suggested that all the denobulins should look like me, so we should stop and pick up like a denobulin craft in distress, and it should just be me. Like, but then also all the denobulants were slobs, so the entire shit was like dirty dishes and like newspapers all over the place. It was like they just picked up a crew full of Oscar Madisons. They rejected
18-year-old denobulants.
Yes, they rejected that.
All right, I'm getting the evil eye from my team off stage. Let's go to questions. Let's go over there, please. Come on.
Hello.
Thank you, I'll be quick. Well, first of all, Mr. Billingsley, is this on? Yeah, okay, there we go. You're my favorite episode of West Wing, so thanks for that. But I have a question for all of you. I'm sure after 4 years, it must have been, must have been a big learning experience for all of you, and then even since then, I mean, you've been around the franchise since then. So just what was the most valuable learning experience?
Valuable learning experience.
Learn your lines, show up on time, keep your nose clean as best you can.
You didn't do any of those things.
I tried.
Yeah, there are different things you learn. If you're talking about what you learn as an actor, yeah, there is a level of discipline required to be a series regular that is that is a challenge at first if you haven't done it before. And you know, obviously, what we all love about Scott is, as the number one, his challenges are infinitely greater than ours. I mean, he was such a great role model. But it can be a grind. 12, 14-hour days, very physically demanding. I think you have to learn how to manage your health and keep your stamina going. That's a learning experience.
Yep.
All right, let's turn it over here. Come on.
Don't spunk all the money.
I'm a huge Enterprise fan.
Louder, please.
I think like everybody else, I really wished it would have gotten a longer run. So for each of you, what would you like to have seen from your character and then from the series as a whole had it continued?
That's a great question. Dominic, you start.
So if we continued, what would we like to have seen us do? Gosh, I'm always just sort of dumbfounded by that, because I don't know. I mean, the way, we didn't get much say-so in what our characters were going to do. It was always a revelation each episode. But it was nice the way they were developing Malcolm and his backstory and his conflict with the captain. And that was, I was looking forward to getting into some of that. Facetiously, I could have been captain one day.
Linda, how about you?
I mean, the fun answer, I think I had so much fun in that mirror universe. And I think a lot of people were saying, well, that's what it should have been. I would have loved to have spent more time there and seen what Empress Hoshi went on to do. As far as Enterprise went, I think I've talked about this before. John and I have talked about it, and of just kind of wishing that there was more development in between the characters, relationship-wise.
I thought that's what we were going to do, to be honest. I thought that our show was going to be much
more about that.
Our interaction as the 6-7 of us on the ship.
And it was mostly a kind of redoing that, Bones, Kurt, with T'Pol, Trip, and the captain, and we understood that, but I think there were so many other dynamics to have explored with some more complexity, rather than one-off episode about Trip and Malcolm, or one-off episode about Phlox and Hoshi. Having made things a little more complicated and having them actually reflect the missions. What are people's opinions about that? How do they conflict with each other? And it just made it a little more messy, a little more real as we progressed.
John, how about you?
I think I would have liked to have had a torrid homosexual affair with Gary Graham's character. I don't know if you sense the subtext that I at least put into every scene. I don't know if Gary did, but I put it in.
I saw his twitch a couple of times.
What's that like Vulcan way of making, what is that?
The Vulcan way of making love, it takes like 15 hours. Yeah, it would have been a whole mini-series. Now, speaking of Pomfar,
All right.
speaking of Pomfar,
They're practically pulling a hook from the side of the stage there, getting us off there. I'm going a little bit over. We could have stayed on here for another hour. You guys are awesome. Come on, folks, give it up.
Thank you, Adam.